Robby, what's on your radar?
Exactly 4 years ago, as of yesterday, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, repealed the internet regulation known as net neutrality, which had forced internet service providers to treat all content identically in terms of download and streaming speeds, for instance. Now, since the popular policy had come into existence during the Obama administration and was gutted during President Trump's reign, its demise was treated as, well, the end of the internet as we know it by panic-stricken resistance liberals. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi predictably said the Republican attack on net neutrality was an attack on, you guessed it, democracy itself.
The free and open internet is a pillar of so many things, our democracy, our economic possibilities, entrepreneurship, and the rest, creating opportunities and empowering communities.
What isn't an attack on democracy these days? This is a side issue, but if you label absolutely everything an attack on democracy, people will start to tune you out. They might not be listening when a genuine threat to democracy, like Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the election, for instance, comes along. But I digress. Now, in order to explain why the repeal of net neutrality 4 years ago was treated like such a big deal, let me re-familiarize you with the concept. So the term net neutrality was coined by Columbia law professor Tim Wu in 2006. His big idea was that the government needed the power to restrict internet service providers' ability to offer different levels of service to different customers. Wu told the government over and over again that without rules requiring internet service providers to treat all traffic and content equally, the internet would eventually come to have many different tiers. Wealthy users would pay for digital fast lanes, while other users would end up with much slower, worse service. Now, the fact that the internet had at that point existed and operated for years with minimal government intervention, never producing such a two-tiered system, did not deter Wu, and the Obama administration eventually agreed and made net neutrality part of Title II of the Communications Act of 1934. Wu now serves as an advisor on technology policy for the Biden White House. When FCC Chairman Ajit Pai undid the policy on December 14, 2017, Democratic policymakers and pundits widely anticipated that the end was nigh. John Oliver did multiple segments on how foolish and dangerous it was to get rid of net neutrality. Here's just a taste.
Ending net neutrality would allow big companies to buy their way into the fast lane, leaving everyone else in the slow lane, although telecom companies would prefer that you put it in a slightly different way.
When you say fast lane and slow lane, it's a good illustration, but what you really should be talking about is a fast lane for everybody and a hyperspeed lane for others.
Bullshit! If we let cable companies offer two speeds of service, they won't be Usain Bolt and Usain Bolt on a motorbike. They'll be Usain Bolt and Usain bolted to an anchor.
Yeah, that was 4 years ago, so net neutrality was over and the apocalypse was coming, and we were going to get that two-tiered system, except we didn't. Today, the internet's still here, still functioning properly, more or less. Expectations that internet service providers would practice widespread and improper discrimination didn't pan out. On the contrary, the internet is better and faster for basically everybody than it was when net neutrality ended. In fact, it's better and faster than at any point in past history. Indeed, to the extent we're concerned about people being wrongly denied internet services, we're actually largely talking about social media, not internet service providers. Facebook, Twitter, and Google make different policies, resulting in all sorts of different kinds of content treatment decisions for various people for different reasons. Your internet service provider, for the most part, doesn't do that sort of thing. Nathan Lemur, a former advisor to Pai and a current public affairs executive, pointed out on Twitter yesterday that the Chicken Littles of net neutrality never recanted their dire predictions. His Twitter thread included some rather hilarious examples. The front page of CNN.com declared the end of the internet as we know it under a breaking news tab when net neutrality was gotten rid of. This was a news story, not an opinion piece. Senate Democrats made an equally extreme claim that without net neutrality, the internet would load one word at a time. That's what that tweet is indicating. Needless to say, that didn't happen. Senator Ron Wyden said to expect digital serfdom. We're still waiting for that. Of course, celebrities got in on it. Here was Alyssa Milano. The internet, watch the FCC, watch the Trump administration destroy the internet. The internet is not destroyed, however. It's 4 years later. Lemur also points out that Pai got mountains of harassment and death threats against his family. That would, of course, have been wrong regardless, even if his policy change was a really bad idea. But as it turns out, nothing happened to the internet. The apocalypse did not take place. The sky did not fall. just once, it would be refreshing to hear people go back and say, all right, that was a little hyperbolic.
But lots of fun stuff to unpack here. One is that why do internet service providers, cable companies, say they want to do something if they don't actually want to do it? Like, why did they want the ability to do a fast lane and a hyperlane? Like, why?
Well, there might be legitimate.
If they're never going to do it.
There might be some situations where we would actually all agree that what if someone in the future is sucking up all the bandwidth, all the resources by downloading some mountains and mountains of video games or porn or something, and for the system to function, we need to nuke that person temporarily.
Well, that they do actually have regulatory.
They had a little bit of discretion under Title II
to do that
previously.
I think what's really happening here is much more interesting, which is this: there are multiple sources of power that exist. One is the law. This is the law. We have a federal government that's going to enforce it. You cannot you cannot throttle people. You cannot force Netflix to pay you in order to deliver their to pay extra. The other source of power is people power. And more people weighed in on net neutrality since 2014 than probably on any other issue when it came to the federal government, both calls to Congress, letters to Congress, and importantly, comments to regulators. Cable companies created fake accounts, and this was a big scandal that the New York Attorney General uncovered. Something like 8.5 million fake comments were submitted against net neutrality that turned out to be ginned up by this multi-million-dollar cable company campaign. And so the cable companies are on notice that the public writ large understands this issue. And I don't think that right out of the gate they were going to immediately start throttling. And now you have Tim Wu, who, as you said, was the originator of the term and kind of pushed this. He is in the White House as the tech advisor. So if cable companies started monkeying around with people's broadband, immediately Tim Wu is going to do something about this. So if you're a cable company and you know that the whole public is watching you, and Tim Wu is sitting there right in the White House, you're not going to do it. That doesn't mean that
the
they're
sky's
not a
only
threat.
not falling because people being vigilant.
Because of people power, right? And here I pulled up John Kennedy for you. So John Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, voted against getting rid of net neutrality. He said, "The vote came down to one thing and one thing only. How much do you trust your cable company? I want to be able to trust everyone, but I believe verification is necessary for a free and open internet. I also believe in love, but I still own a handgun." The people right now have
a Kennedy
kind
of statement.
It's very Kennedy. It's very Kennedy. But the people right now have a handgun.
Yeah.
And Tim Wu is in the White House, and they're pointing the handgun at the cable companies. And so it's not surprising that the cable companies are like, oh yeah, that thing we said we wanted, the thing we spent millions of dollars lobbying to get the authority to do, we're not going to do it. Don't worry. Put the gun down. Put the gun down. Everybody relax.
And if public opinion, negative public opinion, prevents private companies from doing something, that's totally fine.
I knew you would love that.
That's totally fine. But the change, net neutrality was the change, right? We just undid the change. And there was no evidence that they were doing the thing that it sought to prevent them from doing before. And then there was this period where it existed, and now they're not doing it, and it's fine. And again, there might be some cases where it would be fine to do that. We would, social media, we're having all these sorts of arguments, and they scramble traditional right-left designations for when some people does everyone deserve the exact same level of service? What if you're a bad actor? What if there's all these other conditions? So there is some variance there in what kind of experience and service and quality you're getting on social media, which is now very important to a lot of people's livelihood. It's not just place to post your pictures, to your engagement in society. And there are rules, and they can be different, and different people can get different levels of service. That's actually very accepted now in social media, even by people on the right and the left, and then some people on the right and left disagree on that and think actually it should all be equal for everyone. But it doesn't seem so fundamentally different from the internet speed question, providing the internet service entirely, where there isn't tremendous variation in what they give you yet.
Right. And the way that social media favors some content over others shows that powerful forces are interested in doing this type of thing. The net neutrality movement successfully, I think, has kept the cable companies in a cage so far. Social media giants are not in the cage. And you've seen the political repercussions from that. People are furious at them.
Right.
And so that's something that's still being fought out.
But as I explained in other radars, I think a lot of that frustration is misdirected and wrong and bitter and whiny.
I
and
understand that.
That some of the variation is well-deserved, and we don't need a government solution to it because it's all working itself out mostly fine.
As Kennedy said, and I love it, I also believe in love, but I still own a handgun. So.
Well, and I support his right to do that.
I don't love the cable companies, though.
Well, I hate the cable companies, but I have fast internet, and it's actually the internet part is the part of the cable companies that is the least scammy, and it's the trying to get my freaking TV.
Just don't look away from them for like 5 seconds.
Don't look away.
Like you just have to stay on.
It's like the ghost in Mario. It's not going to come and get you if you're looking at it. Or in Doctor Who, those monsters.
That's right. That's right, actually. Yeah.
Team Rising joins us next. Stay with us for that.